I just went over your form real quick. Looks like you got a couple of, I think I'm a senior dogs are 11 years old.
We have two seniors that are 11, and then we have this puppy who is just 6 months, and who at this point in time is definitely in need of training too. He is becoming.
Sure.
Yes, we've been working. Yes, he's a lot of demand.
Puppy. And just a heads up, we should be fine, but my internet decided to stop working before the Zoom. So I'm on my phone hotspot. So if we get disconnected or anything, just hold tight and then I should be able to get back in, okay?
All right.
Okay, so you keep them downstairs and then there's been some territorial issues.
Here's I guess I'll put it this way. We have a pen for them, a big area for them to sleep in downstairs. And we used to have.
You can show them. I don't know if you could.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could see from here. See that area?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we keep the senior dogs and the white one, and then the little one is where we put the little one. But we don't put them there at night.
We just put them there when we're going to go to bed, basically. So that's the issue we're talking about.
Oh, the white dogs. The senior dogs.
Yeah. And so they used to sleep in there at night with our other Schnauzer who died. He was 14. Mm-hmm. And they would go in there and there was no problem with that. But after he died, now we'll put them in there to go to bed at night, and
they'll cry.
After a little, they'll be quiet for a little while, but come 5, 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes with some regularity, at least one of them just starts bark, 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 bark. I got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how to get her to stop.
And before that, when we had our senior dog, before he passed, they would stay in there until, whenever we would wake up. But since he passed, they would cry to look for him. I think maybe they were like mourning, they couldn't find him and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we had them and they were sleeping with us in our bed. Mm-hmm. So then they got used to that. So, and then we started putting them in the cage because I was like, I can't have 3 dogs in the bed. I can't sleep with 3 dogs in the bed. It's hard. Mm-hmm. So then we started putting them back in the cage. And then every morning, sometimes 5, 4, 6, they decide to wake up and start barking because they want to get out.
And it's really one more than the other, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. And so we have the puppy that's been sleeping with us because I had him in his little doggy bag when he was a baby. So now he's just sleeping either on the foot of the bed or under the bench area. So I'm not sure if that's really making him jealous. But all in all, we would like for all of them to sleep together, maybe in our room or like some little area where they just stay until we wake up, and then it'll start barking and waking us up in wee hours of the morning. So. Yeah,
what we'd like to do is be able to get them to lay like in a dog bed in the bedroom on the floor, unless we want them to come up. And they at this point they're not capable of that. If they're in there, they're going to want to be on the bed, all of them.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I was reading, and I'm sorry, I know it's Bo, and I didn't catch your name.
Jennifer.
Yeah. I read Jennifer. She's more on par with discipline.
Yeah.
And then Bo is you are more so like making sure that they're happy and content, and doing so and behaving well, not in fear.
That is correct. 100%. Got it.
Okay. You guys are completely opposite. Okay. So your case, what you're dealing with is stupid simple. Okay.
Well, that's good. Then we'll talk about it again.
However, what's going to make this difficult is you're on 2 different ends of the spectrum, okay? And you have 11-year-old dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to explain this to you. Hell, I'll probably just even tell you what to do, because this isn't worth you hiring me for 6 classes, because this is literally like a 5-minute problem for me, if not even 5 minutes, okay? So for dogs, let's say, and I like the names, by the way, Beowulf and Gilgamesh. Those are pretty cool names. I like them, especially for some for little guys.
Bichons. Oh yes.
Yes, I love it. So, so size, age does not matter to a dog. Okay. Yeah. if let's say Beowulf, this is just as an example, okay? Let's say you're at the dog park, you had Beowulf and Gilgamesh, and a dog started harassing them, right? And they were growling and like snapping to set boundaries, and that dog kept harassing them, they would possibly bite, right? Not to be aggressive, but saying like, yo, you didn't pay attention to all these other warnings, right? So now I'm going to escalate, and vice versa. Yeah. If either of them harassed a younger dog, whether it be a 6-month-old puppy or a 2-year-old dog or another, 11-year-old dog, yeah, they don't look at age and size. They just go, you're harassing me, and if you're not going to listen to the warnings, like the growl or the lip curl or anything like that, I'm going to bite you.
Right.
Okay. And the issue is with humans is we're logical. Okay. And this is why small dogs are so difficult to train, because people view them always as puppies because they're so small, or because of the size. They're like, well, I can't be physical because I could potentially, you're more likely, to cause physical harm to a smaller dog than you would to a bigger dog, right? But that's why you would, if you did physical discipline, you would appropriate it to your dog. However, size doesn't matter. So my Chihuahua, who is 8 pounds, and he's now approaching 8 to 9 years old. When I first got him at a year, he was a feral dog. He lived outside in farmland, Texas for the first year of his life. Okay. Then I had to integrate him into home life and potty train him and crate train him. And he was super dog reactive on leash. And at that point, this was close to 10 years ago, I was using prong collars, the spiky ones, right? Yeah. And they make them small for little dogs.
We have them, actually. Yeah.
You have them, okay.
For the little puppy, because he pulls like crazy.
Gotcha. So when he would become reactive, I would correct him with the prong collar, and I'd have to correct him so harshly he would go spinning, okay? But then he'd go back to lunging and barking. And it typically took me about 3 harsh corrections of him spinning before he would stop.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was only 8 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did the lighter corrections, and they didn't work. So for a human, because they're dealing with a small dog, they tend to just go, well, I guess this isn't going to work. I'm like, it's going to work. You just have to match your dog. Right. So he was a very great learning dog for me, because it's so early on that I quickly learned size does not matter, neither does age in their world. So even though he's 8 pounds and I was using very harsh physicality to the extent that he was spinning, it would take up to 3 corrections before he stopped.
Yeah.
Right. But anybody else would go, he's so small, what else can you do? Does that make sense?
Right.
So that's why it's an issue here, because one, not only are they small, but they're 11 years old. Okay. But it's still the same approach. It would still be physical corrections.
See, and I did that when I had my 14-year-old Schnauzer. He was very well behaved, mind me very well. But when he was little, I was very stern about training him. But he listened. It took about 3 or 4 corrections. I give him a little spanky, or I had the training collar, I had the gentle leader on him, and I'd be like, no. Mm-hmm. And he would pick it up right away. Mm-hmm. Now with them, they don't listen. I spank them with my sandal on the ass. They don't listen. They don't listen at all.
Because that's not their discipline. And you also may be dealing with a different resiliency.
Yeah. So one of them is, she'll listen more than the other one. The other one doesn't care. It doesn't even faze her at all. And I'm like, ooh, this is bad. So I don't know what else. And he's like, don't hurt my dogs. I'm like, I'm not hurting him. This is how I train my other dog, because I would go, hey, it was to the point where I go, hey, and he would be like, oh crap, I got to listen to my mom.
Sure.
And then he would get right into position and he would do exactly what I needed him to do. Yeah. But with them, I can say, hey, a few times, and one of them will listen to me, but the other one won't.
What's one of the difficulties is one of them is
diabetic.
Oh no, that's true. Beowulf's diabetic, but that doesn't bother her.
That's the one that doesn't listen.
That doesn't bother. Nothing seems to bother her as much. Gilgamesh if you're getting mad at Gilgamesh, she'll get nervous, put her tail down, and she'll
hide for like days.
Yeah, she'll be on edge for days.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, we can't upset Gilgamesh because she really bothers her. But Beowulf, it doesn't matter. You could give her a smack and then 2 seconds later she'd be like, bark, 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 bark,
It
Right.
won't phase her.
Because one of two things. One, dogs don't spank each other.
Okay.
You don't see a dog, right, with a paw like that.
Okay,
Right.
sure.
Maybe boxers, but that's where they get the name from, the way their paws move, but they don't do that as a form of discipline. They bite each other. Okay. And you're not the first people to tell me, that they've spanked their dog or whatever. And also not the first people to say it doesn't work. Because you're thinking physicality, which you're correct. That is physicality.
Right.
But it's not their kind of physicality.
Right.
Okay. So that's
Okay.
one thing. The second thing is energy. So when I discipline dogs, whether it be harshly or, lightly or whatever, I'm always indifferent. I never shout or yell, even like, hey, right, which is just like an attention getter type of thing.
Right.
But that's actually more so where the issues come from.
Mhm.
You also have two personality types for dogs.
Right.
Okay. The softer one, the one that hides for days, is because they are not as confident and a emotionally weaker dog.
Yeah.
Okay. The other dog is physically tougher and emotionally stronger. So that's why you're getting two different reactions. It's just like humans,
Yeah.
right? So like for me growing up, I was spanked. I was raised old school. I was spanked. And but after I hit, like 13 or whatever, spanking became ineffective.
Yeah.
I got physically tougher, right? So then my mom had to resort to like other means of punishment. But as a human, like you can do like the whole like, well, you can't see your friends for a month, and that affects you, right? Not dogs. Dogs don't care. So that's why you're on the right track with the discipline aspect, okay? And you're on the right track with the physicality aspect. It's just it's not being done in a way that they understand, and you also have to let go of the how does one respond to it.
Right.
Okay. So I had a dog that I rehabbed like 8 years ago that was so scared of people. If he saw you approaching from 30 to 40 feet away, he'd pee himself. Okay.
Oh.
And they thought it was abuse and stuff. It was most likely genetics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Because dogs that are abused, if they're stable, they recover. Once they go back into a stable setting, they recover. No, I've had dogs with gunshots, dogs with stab wounds, and they're the sweetest dogs, no issues. And I've had other dogs, same thing, that have issues, but it wasn't so much the abuse that caused it. The dog was already a genetically like miswired dog, and then you added that on. Then we added that on top,
Got it.
So it's like with humans. So like I had an ex-girlfriend like 6 years ago, and we never really got in an argument except for one time, and it was over making dinner reservations. And I was like super busy, and I was like, hey, could you please make this reservation at this restaurant because I got like a really full day, and it was just take one thing off the plate, right? And she kept telling me like, no, I can't, this and that. And then I just like got firm. I didn't yell, I just got firm. I'm like, just make the reservations. And she just got super quiet over the phone. And I'm like, is everything okay? Right. And then she's like, okay, I'll do it. And then later on, when I spoke to her, I could tell she was still emotionally unsettled. And I was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And then she's like, well, her growing up, her parents, all they needed to do was scold her. They never had to spank her or anything because she was so emotionally soft.
Yeah.
A firm tone was enough.
Yeah.
Right? Very non-confrontational. For me, I was spanked several times for the same thing.
Too.
Right? Different personality types.
Right.
Okay.
It's funny because he grew up not getting spanked. It was just being told like very firm. And I was like, we would get our ass beat.
Yeah.
With the chancla, like boom, go to your room.
Friends.
And it wasn't like that for him either. So
yeah, and I have friends, it's very interesting, our perception of discipline. And I've had people that were scolded. I've had people that were spanked, and I also had people I've talked to that were spanked, but it was overboard.
Right.
And it's very interesting how their or our what's the word, experience with that discipline. Like I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Right.
You know, my mom held me to high standards and also provided consequence that was like, hey, you're gonna do this and do this for your own good. And it was.
Yeah.
But I've had friends who they're like, no, it was too much. Like, and they like told me like an example. I'm like, holy shit. I was like, my mom spanked me, but she never did that for this. That doesn't equate. That's not equal, right? So it's very interesting. But dogs, despite how emotionally weak the other dog may be, or physically tough or physically weak or anything like that, they aren't logical to that degree. They just establish the discipline. They don't communicate. They don't say, hey, you know what? Like, I don't like it when you bark, you know, in the pen. I'm trying to sleep over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they disagreed, the one that would disagree with the behavior would simply bite the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, you know, physicality, even at their age of 11 years old, even though one is diabetic and the other one is emotionally weaker or what have you, it doesn't matter in their world. But because we're human and we see this stuff, because I've had dogs that were aggressive and like bite people and stuff.
Yeah.
And you work with them, they make a lot of progress, they're doing great, and then like they break a leg.
Mm-hmm.
So then the owner dials back on discipline because they broke their leg. And all of a sudden the dog becomes aggressive again. Because, you know, so for the dog, it didn't matter. It was like broken leg or not, like you still have to discipline them.
You got to stay consistent, basically.
Correct.
Whatever the plan is.
But the human feels bad. They're like, oh, the dog's leg is broken. What am I going to do? I'm like, you still discipline them because now we're back to square one. Okay. So that's the tricky part. Okay. Question so far?
No, that makes sense. I guess the question is, what form of discipline are we supposed to use to be effective here?
So the way I'm going to just give you what I would like, just give you the answer essentially. There's different ways of approaching this. One way would be using the bonker. I think that's probably the easiest thing for you.
The bonker?
Yes.
What is that?
The bonker is a rolled up towel. Okay. You roll it up, you use rubber bands or whatever, and you bonk the dog. Okay. There's two ways of bonking them. Some people throw it. Some people actually bonk the dog themselves physically. Okay. So it's a firm but soft object. So anytime, when it comes to behavior and simply stopping something, it's all about consequence. Okay. Have you guys ever touched a hot stove?
Yes.
Would you do it again?
No.
Okay. You had consequence. Even though it was an inanimate object, it was still consequence that changed your behavior.
Right.
Okay. It was an aversive.
Right.
If touching the stove felt good, everybody would be touching the stove. So it's the same thing for your dogs. So imagine them as 3 to 4 year old kids, because that's their learning capacity.
Yeah.
And the barking is yelling or screaming, right? If I did that, my mom just came in, you know, as long as it wasn't like, you know, if it was yelling for like, because I hurt myself, that's different. But if it's yelling because I'm being loud and obnoxious, that's also different. I would get spanked for that, right? If my mom had a friend come over and I was jumping at them, I'd get spanked for that, right? If I was running around the store acting like a fool, I'd get spanked for that, okay? So think of the bonker as the version of spanking, okay? Which you tried, but we'd have to do it appropriate, and I would send you videos.
Okay.
So, because I have 3 videos that I send people: how to use one, how to make one, and a trainer actively using a bonker. Okay, and that one's super important because it shows you the level of force that he uses. Okay, now you have to gauge that yourself. I've been correcting dogs for 10 years. I use like also the Cesar Millan method. I don't know, you guys familiar with Cesar Millan?
I love him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch him. I watch the shows. I used to watch shows all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, he used to do the touch with the dog bite, you know, like you could technically do that, but that one's typically harder for people to grasp. The bonker is a bit easier because just bonk the dog. So it's a firm but soft object. If the behavior continues to persist, what does that tell us?
Um,
Well, I guess it tells you that method is insufficient for this dog. That doesn't.
Possibly. What else?
more consistency. I don't know.
Firmer.
Oh, okay. We're doing it too softly, is what you say.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, when I hit that kind of bridge where my mom's spankings weren't effective anymore, like I would laugh.
That's what I would do too. And then I would get smacked even harder.
Yes. So then when
the
things would happen, my mom she's like, all right, you think this is funny? And she would spank me until it wasn't funny. Because you get sore.
That was us.
Right? Or two, she'd call my dad. And they got firmer. Okay, because he had the physical force.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the dog. Okay. It's one or the other. Okay. Now it is possible that your dog could, like I told you about my Chihuahua, he would took 3 very harsh corrections with the prong collar of him spinning before he would cut the crap. Right. And of course the bonker isn't to in terms of what you can deliver intense wise. It probably falls short a bit. So there is that possibility, okay? And that's why there's different tools in terms of correcting dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the easiest and simplest one, and it's immediately available to you, okay? So then you would any little thing you don't like, you would simply correct using the bonker. Barking, jumping, nipping, whining, begging to go on the bed, all that stuff. It's just bonk, 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 bonk. Okay, because it's one consequence for a multitude of behaviors. So if I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do my chores, if I talked back to my mom, if I didn't get good grades, it was just spank, 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 spank. Okay, so that's why I was like, it's simple. Like you don't need obedience. Obedience doesn't help here. Because you're just trying to stop them from barking and driving you nuts.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, because we don't want to keep waking up at 5 a.m. and we don't need to.
Yeah.
That's another thing is, so we'll have the little one in our bed and he decides that whether it's 4, 5, 6 in the morning that he wants to get up to go outside to use the restroom. We don't want to keep getting up at that time. I mean, he gets up anyway because when he was a baby, I didn't want him to pee. I wanted to stay consistent with the pee-pee. So now he doesn't have accidents at all. But now we have a problem where he decides at 5 a.m. he wants to go out and we have to get up.
Yes, he does.
And then it wakes up the other dogs and then they want to get out even more.
Yeah, because you created a habit now.
Right.
So that's why I don't take puppies out at 1 o'clock in the morning. I put them in a kennel and I put them in a room where I can't hear them. And if they pee overnight, too bad, you're going to have to wait till the morning.
Right.
And then that's what teaches them to not go overnight because they're going to wake up and go, crap. The last 2 nights I did this, I had to sit next to it for, 6 hours and I barked and whined and all that stuff and nobody came. I better learn to hold it.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very common. Everybody does it with their puppies, and I'm like, I cut that out right now because now you're going to create a habit. Okay. So, for that, what I would do is just get a kennel, place it in a part of the house where that puppy would be the least audible. But I would expect barking and whining because he's gotten used to sleeping with you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you ignore him and he wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning and he's like, "Hey, I woke up and I whined, but you didn't get up," he may pee on the bed because he's used to going. You've created that habit.
Right.
Okay.
See, the thing is we used to put him in with the girls in that big pen. But he jumps over the top.
Yeah, he can jump out.
He breaks out of there.
I put him in a crate.
Boom, huh?
I put him in a crate.
Well, yeah, we have a crate, but we wanted to put them all together to make them comfortable. But I mean,
yeah, but you got to focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get how'd you say, the end result of them all coexisting right off the bat, and it's really about let's get body training done first, get that established. Okay, cool. Now we can incorporate them with the other dogs, and then if they start barking, now I work on correcting them to create the coexistence.
Right. Okay.
So, and they may not like him for a bit in there, because he's young, he's a puppy, he's going to want to play at odd hours. and they're 11 years old.
That's why we kind of stopped doing it, because I told my husband, I was like, well, he's probably terrorizing the shit out of them when we're not home, and then he jumps out, you know, because he wants to play, and they get irritated with him and they snap. So
yeah, so when it comes to that, there's a few approaches. One would be if he's bothering them and they correct him, you know, if I know the dog's correctly, because some dogs go overboard, I let them, and so he respects them.
yeah.
Okay. And then if he doesn't, because he's just a physically tougher puppy or whatever, or he's just a little bit dense on the learning side, then I correct him for them.
Yeah.
So then they go, because they're not doing anything wrong. They're established. They've been there for 11 years.
Right.
That's their home. And he's bottom of the barrel. Okay.
Right.
That's the dog world. Otherwise, you know, if you're worried about them being best buds and stuff, that may not happen. I have it happen all the time with dogs inside the home where they don't become friends. They just coexist. And the owner was like, oh, if I got them so they would play. I'm like, well, that's not how it works. You know?
Yeah, with one of them, the dogs, he's closer to and she'll play with him, but the other one wants nothing to do with him. Nothing. But she'll follow him and they'll follow each other, but they won't play at all. They'll sleep by each other, but they won't, they're like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm looking for a puppy myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a pity puppy, and I have a pit bull and a chihuahua. They're both the same age, about 8 to 9 years old. And they used to be super social, play with any dog, all that stuff. And I used to use them for like my aggression cases, but now they're old.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't have that patience anymore. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to retire them and I'm going to get a puppy. But I'm in my head, I'm already thinking like, you know, it's going to be, they're going to coexist, but the puppy would be playing with other dogs.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't put that on my dogs to play with the puppy.
Right.
But maybe they do, maybe they don't. Because that's not anything, you know, that's something the human decided. So it'd be unfair to expect that from them. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know, because if I put myself in a situation, I'm like, well, I don't like this, but hey, I'm the one to blame because I put myself here, right?
Mm-hmm.
For dogs, it's not their fault. We're creating a situation, so I don't expect them to play with puppy. I expect them to coexist at minimum. You know, there should be no non-validated corrections or aggressive responses or anything like that. I don't need them to play on all that stuff. I just need them to coexist. I'll take care of the puppies, play whatever, if that's a thing. If they play, great. If not, not a big deal. Okay, that's how we create how I create harmony within the home. Because human harmony and dog harmony is different. Human harmony is everybody is happy and playing with each other and no barking, you know. And dog harmony is, hey, I don't screw with you, you don't screw with me, you respect my space, I respect your space, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you did the bonker and the bonker didn't work, then the next thing you could try, I mean, there's also the Cesar Millan touch, you know, where he does the hand jab and all that stuff. People typically have a problem with these approaches because they are physically disciplining their dog, so they feel like they're hitting or that they're hurting their dog, but that's not the intent here. If your dogs are coexisting peacefully, nothing's going on, you know. But if they start barking and annoying you and it's like, all right, now I'm going to apply this aversive because I don't want you to do that again, that's discipline.
Yeah.
And you would do it the moment it starts, or the moment you know it's going to start. Like you see the thought, you see the look, like, oh, he's going to start barking, you'd correct right there. Okay, people tend to wait for the action to already be done. So for dogs, it'll be worth for a dog like to bark at least 2 times before being corrected, and then they'll stop. But they'll always bark 2 times. You know. So, but if I can catch it before they even think about it, then they're like, oh crap, well, I can't even think about it, and then I get corrected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so every dog is different. I don't know how it's going to work out for you, but these are things that I come across. And you know, I work with on a regular basis. It just comes down to whether or not the owner follows through.
Right.
Otherwise, the next step up after that would be prong collars. And then they have to have leashes, but then you'd have to correct so firm that you don't need the leashes, because dogs will recognize when the collar is on and off. With the bonker, it doesn't really require a collar. It's just something you grab and pick up.
Yeah, actually, so I have this prong collar, right?
Uh-huh.
But I was trying to figure out how the heck do I put it on? Because if it's loose, when we stop and one of them's going poo poo or pee pee, he can slip out of this, and he tries to get out of his collars. He's gotten out of his harness before.
Sure. Then
Pulls himself and pulls it over his head.
if he can slip out of that, it's too big.
So do I need to take one of the prongs off then?
You would remove prongs until it fits and it does not slide over it should never slide over the head.
So then how are we supposed to put it around his neck then without injuring his eyes?
You have to undo it.
Oh, okay.
So you squeeze the prongs and you pull up, and then it opens the collar, and then you pop them back in again.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. I can show you. I just got to go grab one.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I've taken the prongs out before.
Yeah, most people don't know how to fit the prong correctly. So it's fitted so that the prong does not slip over the head, because if it slips over the head, it's definitely and then or you'll poke an eye out.
This is a little one.
You'll pluck an eye out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely too big for his neck.
Yeah, that's what I figure. So, but I wasn't sure. I mean, I never really used this with my last dog, Rocco. I just used the gentle leader, but he was very obedient. I mean, he was a very calm dog.
He was way.
I didn't have to really do too much to put a lot of force on him. He would listen right away. He was very, very good.
He had a totally different personality.
He was,
totally
yeah. And when he was a puppy, he wasn't wild and crazy. He was always very, very shy and just sweet all the time. So it's just, like you said, I guess they're all wired differently.
Yeah, I mean, just like humans, not everybody's the same. There's some people that are very social. There's some people that have their small group of friends, and they may seem antisocial, but they're very, comfortable and open and funny with their own friends.
Mm-hmm.
You get people that are physically tougher, those that are physically weaker, those that are emotionally tougher. It's the same thing for dogs and animals as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just knowing their personalities and then disciplining them appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at discipline as a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
So is it Gilly that's the emotionally weaker one, or the soft?
Yeah.
Yes.
So for her, maybe she just needs a 2, but then Beowulf needs an 8 in order to stop the behavior. You wouldn't do 8 for both of them.
Right.
You do it appropriate to the dog and the personality type that you're dealing with, and then you just learn that and you're just consistent with it.
Right.
Okay. Other questions or concerns?
Let's see what other issues we have. So when my husband has a dry cleaner that comes and delivers his dry cleaning and picks it up twice a week. So when they're both down, or when all the dogs are down here and somebody opens up that door, they all go flying towards that front door. Mm-hmm. So the little one, he will walk out that front door and he will take off. He will run. Sure. Now the older ones, no, they won't go anywhere. But I'm just concerned because, of course, sometimes, they'll have a new dry cleaner and they won't know that the puppy's in here, and they'll have the door open, coming in and out, and then the puppy will take off. So how do we get it to where they don't run towards people when they're at the front door, period? They shouldn't be doing that.
Are they being invited in, or are they just walking in themselves?
Yeah, he has a key.
Gotcha. So that makes things more difficult.
Okay.
The way I would approach it is you just do an exercise where you open the door, because it's simple. You're
Mm-hmm.
trying to stop something, right?
Right.
Don't run out the front door.
Right.
Unless I give you permission, right?
Right.
So then I just go and I open the door. I'll have them on leashes just to be safe. I'll go to crack it open, and they all start running, and then I bonk them all. Get the hell out of here. I didn't call you. Okay? And I don't say anything, by the way. Because if you say no and then you correct them, technically they can charge the door until you say no.
Okay.
That's how a dog's brain works. Okay, because then you create cued behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So the cue technically is the door opening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
They see that, then they go, and then I correct them, and
With
then
the
they go,
bumper.
oh, when we see that happen, we don't charge the door, otherwise this happens. But if you open the door, they charge, you say no, and then you correct, then you have to say no. Otherwise, they can charge the door. Okay. Now, you opening the door and your dry cleaner opening the door are two different things. What you would do is first do it yourselves to get that in the brain. Opening door doesn't mean run or charge, right? And you would correct them until I correct until I see the opposite. I see running away from the door. I open, they run away from the door. Okay. People tend to stop at, oh, they stop charging. I go, no, no, no. If you're trying to make this to where someone can walk in unannounced and they don't bolt to the door, you have to create the runaway. Okay, you have to. So then the next thing would be, after I've established it myself, then I'm there, like, when are you coming for the dry cleaning? Oh, I'm coming in an hour. Okay. And I'm waiting. And I let all that happen. I hear his keys, they perk up, and right when they perk up, boom, I correct them right there. You don't even wait for the charge at the door. And then the next time, when you come in for dry cleaning, 20 minutes, okay. You watch the
Sometimes we don't
scenario.
know, and sometimes it's different times when they show up. So
Yeah. So that makes things difficult. You know, I'm not saying that you can't get it done the other way, but you have, it's two different settings for a dog. It's one thing when you're opening the door, and another thing when they hear the keys and someone walks in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because humans generalize, dogs don't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have to work on it specifically.
Okay.
But it's simple in the sense that you just don't want them to like the door opening. Now the counter problem you're going to get is if you try to take them for a walk, right? Is that you're going to see some hesitation. But they will
They'll be
learn.
hesitant to go through that door then.
Right. But they will learn that when the leash comes out and you clip them, that it's a totally different thing. They will learn that. Because again, context. Leash is now in the picture, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to there's no leash and we're just opening the door. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, but
Because
what you
little one, he's starting to recognize that once his harness is on, he runs towards the front door. He's ready to get clipped for his leash. Right. So he's sitting there waiting by the front door, waiting, ready to go for his walk. So,
right. But
it was funny because when we first got him, when he was a puppy, he was very scared of his harness. It was the weirdest thing. He would run away from his harness. We'd pull it out and he would just rip off running.
Sure.
But now he's fine. So I don't know what happened.
Because dogs don't have harnesses.
Yeah.
Dogs aren't supposed to have collars, leashes, tags, shots, being in a home or anything like that. They're wild. They're not even supposed to be dogs.
Yeah.
Right. But we're so used to like, this is a dog and this is what we do, but in their world it's not natural.
Right.
So if you decide to correct for the door, expect to see some hesitancy, but they will learn to differentiate between the two contexts of harness and leash mean we can go through the door. Otherwise, if we see the door opening, it's safe to assume don't charge it. Okay. But you can't have like a dog that's going to be happy about it and not charge the door at the same time.
What if we take him out the back door for the walk?
That's a workaround, But yeah, either way, like regardless of how you approach it, they'll get over it. They'll learn the difference. It just won't be like overnight. It might be a month, it might be a couple of months, it might be a week, it might be a day. I don't know. Your dogs do.
Okay. All right.
Other questions?
We have the little one that just consistently bites, and also at night around like midnight to 2 a.m, he's very hyper. Now he sleeps before that and he goes for his walkie, but all of a sudden around that time he wants to play. That's when we're trying to wind down and go to bed, and he is just like has the zoomies and he's running up and down grabbing all of his toys. If we don't play with him, he'll start biting us. So it's and he's very demanding and very intense about it. So it's hard to ignore him.
I just gave you the answer.
The bonker.
Yeah. Remember, you're just trying to stop something.
Okay.
Versives are meant to stop things.
Okay.
Okay. So anything you don't like, you can correct with the bonker.
Okay.
Now, if you say sit and he doesn't sit, you wouldn't bonk that.
You don't?
No, because you're not trying to stop something, you're trying to create something.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a different, obedience has to be taught.
Okay.
It would be unfair to say sit and then correct the dog.
Right.
Because they're not supposed to sit on a cue. That's not their world. Okay. But they do correct each other for jumping, mounting, licking, like, pressing thresholds, things like for things they don't want, they want to stop, they just bite. So this is a dog bite. Okay. This is 10 stitches from a Great Dane. He didn't want to go in the kennel. Right. And I was trying to make him go in the kennel. So to stop that, he bit me.
Yeah.
That was a conversation. So we had a dog at my facility here. We had literally just started training her on Tuesday. On Thursday, they needed to board her, but she's human aggressive. And when they brought her, she got off the muzzle and all that stuff and went to attack me and my employees. Okay. She charged at us. And in that moment, I have to protect my employees, I have to protect myself and stop the attack. I kicked her 3 times. And on the 3rd time, she yelped and ran to the owner and quieted down.
Wow.
All I wanted was for her to stop attacking me.
Right.
Aversive.
Yeah.
Right. And then she was chill. And then we took her in and we took care of her. There's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's all about just stopping something.
Right.
So all those things. So just think that to yourself, think to yourself, are we wanting to stop this behavior? Are we wanting to teach this behavior? Sit, down, stay, come, those things you teach. Okay. Things you stop: licking, chewing, barking, biting, jumping. Yep. You can even technically, if you catch the puppy like piddling, you can correct that as well because it's happening. If it's already happened, you can't correct that because he will not go back in time and relate it to that mistake.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. It has to be as they're doing the behavior or thinking about doing the behavior.
Okay.
That's why I said if you see that, if the door starts to jiggle because the dry cleaning person's coming in and you see them perk up, boom.
Bonker.
That's so what you would end up creating if you really stuck to it is they could be sleeping, the dry cleaner comes over, they don't even wake up. Because they're like, that has nothing to do with us.
Okay.
Okay. You just need consistency and the correct level of correction.
Okay.
Okay.
So with, all this discipline that needs to happen, they're also with the puppy. I do want to teach him how to come. I got him to sit. I got him to turn around. I got him to do high five and also shake. Mm-hmm. But I want him to do other commands too, but it's been a little bit of a challenge. So the other dogs are right there. So I always use treats, but the other dogs are always right there. So it's hard to train him. But I notice also is the down is really hard to teach him too. Like he won't go down.
6 months, right?
He's 6 months, yeah.
Okay. So I only train to a certain degree.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a quick little rundown of like how that would work. That's more formal. That's going to take time. Okay. Is at this age, I do big boy training. I don't do puppy training anymore, personally. Okay. And I do only remote collar. Okay. Which is the e-collar. People call it a shock collar. It's not a shock. It's not electrocution or a taser. It's if you've ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist, it's called a TENS unit. They use it to move the muscles, to break scar tissue, or like if you haven't used if you have to rebuild strength, they use that. They also use it to recreate labor contraction pains in men, mm-hmm. Which are very uncomfortable because labor contractions are painful. So it's the same thing with the e-collar. Mine goes to 127. Other models go to 10. What that means is 10 and 127 are the same, but I have 117 more levels to work with. Okay, so it's very fine-tuned. The reason why I only do remote collar is because now with COVID, everything's verbal instruction now. I don't touch the dog anymore.
Yeah.
I coach the owner. We train at Oz Park, which is in Lincoln Park. It's the busiest park in Chicago. Rollerbladers, skateboarders, strollers, dogs, people, scents, cicadas, parties, bar mitzvahs, baseball games. Everything's going on there.
Right.
And my style of leash walking, which is, when I say heel, if I take one step, the dog takes one step. If I take 5 steps, they take 5 steps. When I stop, they automatically sit. This is, and I don't care what the environment is. I don't care how busy it is. That's the level of focus that I want. You also get off-leash reliability. So if he were to run off or something, I can make him return. So like if somebody sets off a firework and scares a dog and it starts to run away, I can make it return. If the dog's chasing after a squirrel and running towards the street, I can make it return because I have a means of control with them. No other tool gives you that level of control. Okay?
Right.
And I start that at 6 months because that's when they start learning to an adult degree.
Yeah.
If all you're wanting is like super simple puppy training stuff, I'd cover it with you, but then I would tell you like, this is not going to be applicable realistically speaking. Because I think about, will this function? Can my client go to a restaurant patio and their dog not move for 2 hours? Can my client walk through a busy, trail down the forest preserve or whatever and not be pulling everywhere? Can my client get their dog returned no matter what they're running towards or away from? Right. Okay. That's the level of control I want. And it sounds complicated, but it's super simple. It's just the training method that I use.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, and then, length of time and how much control you want, just that's what determines the cost and all that stuff. I've trained dogs as old as, 10 to 12 years old on the remote collar. I'm not saying your dogs need them, but it's completely safe to use. They use the technology on humans. But if you did, the reason why I only use that tool is because my clients are like my walking billboards. Right. And I'm like, why would, and my rate is the same. I'm not going to charge less because I have, a bunch of employees got to pay. I got a huge rent I got to pay for my facility. My rate is the same, but why? But I know the person, they're going to walk away going, I paid this guy $1,200 and my dog is still struggling with these things. I come in, I'm like, I'm going to get it done. You just got to do the homework and use this tool and in practice. So.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So first, let's start with the, I guess the bonker thing.
Yeah, we'll do that. I think that with them, it'll probably work if we do it consistently. That makes sense. And then for him, do you want to arrange the training to start doing that with him or?
Yes.
Okay. Because he also is big on, my dogs, they never really did this, but I walk all 3 together and he is big on barking at everything that moves around. So he's going to bark at a dog. He's going to bark at, in a way that my dogs are just sort of just ignoring him, trying to yank him along and get him to quit. And, because they don't do any of that. But that's one thing. When I'm walking him, the thing that bothers me the most is really just the barking at the other dogs.
The excessive barking when he is on a walk.
My 2 dogs will walk side by side together. They just they've been sisters. They've always done that. They've just been like that. And they'll walk together right side by side. But he's all over the map while I'm trying to walk him.
Yeah. He's overstimulated. That's why he's barking.
Okay.
Too excited. So the e-collar will help fix that problem. Okay. If it's overstimulation, that barking should be done, if not by the end of the first class, by the second class. Okay. Because the problem isn't the barking. The problem is he's too excited because he's a puppy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So once you start to apply discipline, it calms him down. And I'll send with the bonker videos, I'll send you a couple of videos of me working with clients. So, we've begun recording everything because it is verbal instruction. It's a ton of information that if the owner forgets something, they just go back to my YouTube channel and look up their video and they can watch what they missed. Okay. Or if they're struggling with something, I'll send them a video from another client and say, here, this is this is what you're struggling with, and this is what you're trying to achieve, so that they get a visual. Everybody's been doing great. Everybody's been doing great, you know, and I very rarely have to work with the owner unless, like touch the dog, unless it's like a single owner and we're doing like recall or come when called that requires 2 people. Otherwise, if as long as it's a couple or there's 2 people, I don't need to touch the dog. I just coach them through it, and then they practice. And then for you, in terms for your puppy, I'm assuming the walking on the leash because of the barking.
Yes.
Come when called, which is recall. That's, you know, the most important command. And third, do you need them, like, would you take them to like a restaurant with you or something like that, where you like to have brunch and like just have them chill out for a bit?
I would like to take the little one, yes. But he's just too wild right now.
Okay.
Now the older ones, they're really good. They don't really.
They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to bother anybody.
They're not going to go crazy barking or any of that stuff. I mean, they're older. They're much more calmer. Correct. But with him, he's all over the place.
How much does he weigh?
I'd say right now he weighs about 13 pounds, 14 pounds maybe.
The Schnauzer?
Yeah, mini.
Hey, he looked bigger. He looked like 20-something pounds.
No. He's very slight. He's a mini.
Okay, and he's not going to get much bigger than that, correct?
No, this is about what he should be, I think.
That's what they say.
That's what the vet told us about. By this time, he was going to be mostly fully grown.
They're usually, at 6 months, they're typically at the height, but then they're kind of skinny, like the teenager phase.
He's skinny.
Yeah.
I think he'll fill out more.
Yeah. That'll happen around a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the collar that I'd recommend for him, and Maria will send you all this info, is runs about $237 with tax. It's completely waterproof, half-mile range. It's the best brand in my opinion, and will last you for years. I've had mine for 8 years, no issues. And then in terms of length of time, it's most likely be around 6 to 9 classes. Okay. So I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. The 6-week is, you know, we can cover the heel, we can cover the recall, and then it's usually a couple classes a piece. And then if you're doing well and you're practicing and you're doing your homework, we will make a lot of progress. But people tend to get busy or they forget things. So then we have to like review things. So then it may kind of affect what we cover within the 6 classes. So it's, you're at either 6 or 9 classes. Okay. It's 1 day a week for an hour. We meet at Oz Park because it's very distracting. So if you can do it at Oz Park, doing it at home should not be a problem. It's just personal preference. I train up to off-leash reliability, which means everything can be done off-leash. It's sit, say, come down, place heel. Most people just need standard family pet stuff. Walk with me without pulling. Come when I call you, no matter what, and then whatever other couple things they may need. A very common question that I get is, when does the e-collar go away? And in my opinion, it doesn't when you need it. So that means when you'd be out on a walk, you'd have the collar on them. And people always ask, and it's not that you're actively using it. He's already been trained, but the presence of the collar, he's going to behave better. Okay. So
you're saying without leash, off leash, then he's going to have the e-collar.
Well, always. That's for sure. Absolutely. Just in case.
He's saying, he always has it on because he knows if he's going anywhere where he might need to behave, he has it on because he knows.
Oh, I see.
It'll get in his brain that I have this on, and this is
yeah.
Gotcha.
So people always ask, like, because I know, like, their whole, like, the dog should know better, learn better, whatever. So you guys drive?
Yeah.
Yes.
You go on the expressway?
Yes.
Do you go the speed limit?
Sometimes I don't. A lot of the times I don't.
A lot of times,
my husband does.
Most people don't. I think we can agree, right? When you're out on the expressway, most people don't.
Right.
That's called opportunistic behavior. Mm-hmm. So if you can get away with something, you know, some people press it because you're like, well, I'm just going a little bit over the speed limit, right? But the law doesn't have a gray area saying, you know, like, oh, you're going 75 and a 70, oh, it's okay, right? The 70 is 70, okay? But if you see a squad car, you and everybody else is going to slow down, except for Bo, because he's already slowed down. So it's the same thing for the dogs. I tell everybody it's like a cop on a collar.
Yeah.
When it's present, you're going to have control. When it's not present, he's going to act a fool. So you'd only use it when you need it. If you have a guest coming over and you don't want him to harass people, you put it on. If you're going to go for a walk and you don't want him pulling all over the place, you put it on, whether or not he's going to be on or off leash. Otherwise, if he's a great dog inside the house, then you don't put it on, and you only use it when you go for outside and you go on your brunches and stuff. It's not that you're always using it. It's that it's present, and he knows to behave better because you have a means of providing consequence that he's going to respect. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, anything else?
Nope.
Hope that makes sense. I'll look for the email and then we'll get everything arranged.
Yeah, Maria will get in contact you with the scheduling and all the other training info. And then I will send you the emails with the bonker videos and the e-collar, like just kind of give you an example of our, training methods. I'm super transparent with people. So I'm like, because of COVID, like we went from 30 to 40 clients to 0, and had to rebuild that all through just verbal instruction. So we're back at our normal numbers now. But it was dead for a bit until I got my first client that was like, all right, we'll give it a go. And then they did a testimonial, and then that proved that our methods work, even though we're not working with the dogs ourselves. And then it's been a gradual return to normalcy. So.
Okay. And the classes, these are just us and you and the dog. It's not some group thing, right?
Correct. There's private. It's completely you and I. And then we've been doing it at Oz Park. We are beginning to integrate, because I used to do home to home.
Mm-hmm.
But because of COVID, like I would see as many, I would have as many as 8 clients a day. And with COVID, if I'm going to one person's house, into another person's house, into another person's house, if somebody is sick, then I'm exposing everybody throughout the day, So it's trying to keep it safe, but still keep my business running. And so far, it's been going well with this approach.
Okay, great.
Okay, so if you have any other questions, you let me know. Otherwise, Maria will be in touch, and then I will follow up with you as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.